Good morning and welcome to Friday with the Rev. This is a very special edition as today is a very powerful day in the lives of Christians and Jews all over the world. And so I begin by wishing all of you a very blessed Good Friday, a very holy Easter week, and a joyous Easter. And to our friends of the Jewish faith, we say a Shena Pesach, a beautiful and joyous Passover. Now, it's 8 o'clock in the morning here, so celebrations are going on all over the world. Some of you who are listening to us this morning have already been to Good Friday services and are preparing for Holy Saturday. In Jerusalem, it's just about time for Passover to begin there. So it is an ongoing event. And as I spoke to you last week, this is a time of enormous spiritual energy because people all over the world, millions and millions of people, are praying in their way to the God of their understanding. What does that mean for us? No matter where we may be on our faith journey, whether we are people of a devout, specific faith, or people who are questioning, people who are confused, people who are not even sure. It is a moment to be still and to reach in and to grab on to that spiritual time, for that spiritual strength, to be still and to know the source far beyond all of us, whatever name you might call it. So I urge you to take advantage of this time, whether it's higher power, whether it's God, whether it's Yahweh, whether it's Allah, whatever word might be comfortable. Take this opportunity to have a season in your life of growth. Now, this group of talks, these series, Friday Morning with the Rev, have begun as a result of caregiving work, my ministry. And these are broadcasts that deal with family caregiving, faith, and spirituality. And on a day like today, they very much come together. And so it's a special joy to be with you, to have some reflections and some suggestions to you, and to send love to each and every one of you. To those of you who are caregivers, I say thank you. To those of you who are working with caregivers, I say thank you. And to all of us, during these holiday seasons, let us remember caregivers with our prayers, with our love, and most importantly, with our presence. Now, before I go into today's topic, I want to restate that if you would like to make contact with me, and many, many of you do from all over the world, the two easiest ways are through the email systems, either through my work at Emblem Health, and the email is very simple. It's gjohnson@emblemhealth.com. Or you can reach me through the Marble Collegiate Church, where my email is gjohnson@marblechurch.org, marblechurch.org. And if you would like a copy or copies or PDFs of Care for the Family Caregiver, a place to start, it's available in English, in Spanish, and in Chinese. Just email me. Let me know that which you're looking for, and I'll be happy to respond and to share it with you. That's what this is all about. Last night at the Marble Collegiate Church was Maundy Thursday here in New York, and we celebrated and remembered that very dark and difficult evening with some very powerful readings and some very powerful stories. It's interesting that both Good Friday and the Holy Week and Passover are times of stories. They are stories of freedom from bondage, from darkness into light, And that certainly resonates with all of us as family caregivers. And I'm going to speak just briefly about both Good Friday, Maundy, Thursday, the Holy Week story, and about Passover, as we look at the importance of our stories. Last night, we were looking particularly at the Gospel of Mark. And we see the story of Jesus in the upper room sharing the Passover Seder. Remember, Jesus was born and died a Jew. And so he was celebrating with his disciples the Passover. And in that, he gave the new commandment, hence the name Maundy, Thursday, the mandate, to make a new commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. This was going to be, and it was indeed, the culmination of Jesus' earthly life. It's often referred to as the Passion story, and indeed it was the Passion story. But I want to read something to you because I think it's equally important for us to remember it. Yes, this comes from our wonderful source, Father Richard Rohr. To restrict Jesus' passion to his suffering and death is to ignore the passion that brought him to Jerusalem. To think Jesus' passion as simply what happened on Good Friday is to separate his death from the passion that animated his life. And what was he passionate about? God and the kingdom of God. Helping people to know that the kingdom of God is within. And God and God's passion for justice. Passion is something that family caregivers have in great abundance. And what was it Jesus was showing to us? He was showing to us what divine love really looks like. And he modeled how to live a human life grounded in the divine nature. Now, I want to take a moment just to suggest something to you. And this may seem different to perhaps some of the things you've ever thought about. But in Mark, and that was the gospel that we were using last night, Jesus is talking to his disciples, saying what is about to happen. I am ready. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be painful, but joy will come. And he talks about having been with the disciples, having been here on earth, and growing more and more in his divinity, and saying that what he has done and what he has said was not of him, but of God the Father within him. And he talks of the Father again and again. And then he makes a statement that is sadly slapped around, as so much in theology can be done when we extract a piece here and extract a piece here for our own personal view. In the phrase that I'm referring to is, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That, in my opinion, was not the statement of a new religion. I am. When we hear those words, what do we think of immediately? When they asked God, what is your name? And God said, I am that I am. Now, if we look at that phrase that Jesus was saying, he was speaking for God, saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It becomes far more inclusive. And that God of love, the God who is the Father of all of us, is with us at all times. And we as caregivers need to remember that. No matter how you look at faith, no matter how your spirituality may be growing, I am the way, the truth, and the life, becomes a strengthened rock, that when you've hit rock bottom, at the bottom, the rock at the bottom is the divine, who is there to walk with you and to help you. Now in Passover, which here in New York we begin to celebrate this evening, it again is a great story of Israel coming out of bondage in Egypt. And one of the great songs, and I think it's a great, great lesson for all of us. One of my favorite parts of going to Passover is the Haggadah, which is the book that is read, the script, as it were, for the meal and for the remembering of that journey. There's a wonderful song in it called Dayenu. Dayenu. That would have been enough. And in the song, it talks about all that God has done. All that God has done from creation, going on and through each and every trial, and God was there, and that would have been enough, and this would have been enough. But God's love was so great, there was always more. And there continues to be more as we relate in our own lives and find that divine spark within us. However you may define that, because that's a growth opportunity, that's a constant, and that is an expansion. And as I always keep saying, let's make the circle wider, for there's room for all. We are all children of God, and let us never be so small-minded as not to grow and to learn from one another. For God is love. And that is the love we are celebrating and sharing. Even in the darkest times, love prevails. May that be your story. And stories, those of us who are in recovery, know how vital qualification stories can be. Look at your story. Look at the Dayenus of your life. Look as you expand your understanding of the way, the truth, and the life. We are greatly, greatly blessed. Now, this last week, I began a series of the 6 spiritual principles of family caregiving. We did number 1 and number 2, and this week they will be available in their entirety on my Facebook page. I'm just having a little trouble getting it there, but I have people who are going to help me. So today I want to talk about 2 of them, and they very much relate to our stories, to our journeys. And I pray that as you are considering your role presently in caregiving, or as you're working with people in the world of family caregiving, that this might help you to help them. All right. And I'm going to read because I want to be quite clear that I get what we've written correctly. Be in the moment. This is a difficult one. Getting caught in what happened in the past or what you imagine might happen in the future robs you of the resources you need for the present. In addition, with some caregiving situations, you may be faced with fearful circumstances. The person for whom you're caring may already be dealing with his or her own fear. You don't want to add your anxiety to the mix. Staying in the present moment is a great way to help tame your fears. Now, we all know that. At this moment, we're okay. At this moment, you're okay. At this moment, your loved one is okay. As one of my favorite teachers on this particular subject often says, at this moment, nobody's hair's on fire. We're okay. And we don't want to get caught in the, oh, if only we had done. We didn't. here is where we are today. And let's not be planning the funeral. That may not be the outcome. I'm dealing with one situation with that right now within Prayer Circle. The family thought that that was going to have happened weeks ago. That wasn't God's plan. So we need to be in the moment. And being in the moment, the greatest gift is being present. And then you become a present to yourself and to your loved one. So that's number 3. Number 4, and this also, I believe, is a very appropriate item for us to share as we're thinking of stories and as we're thinking of darkness into light, and how we often could add darkness where we don't really want to be adding darkness. So listen up. Express your feelings appropriately. As a caregiver, you may find people behaving in ways that are difficult to handle. Remember, usually the circumstances of the illness are creating the behavior. Your job is to not take it personally, and that's difficult. But remembering it, and I hope in hearing it, it will help you. However, if you're in a situation where you're compelled to express your feelings, be sure to say how you feel without making the person you're caring for feel wrong. Now, the best way to do this is with I messages and not you messages. Now, what do I mean by that? It is far better for you and for me to say, I feel, and express your feeling, rather than you make me feel unwanted, you aren't appreciative, and all the on and on and on. That's why we have support groups. That's why we have therapists, whether we can only get to them by phone, whether we have clergy, perhaps you can't get there in person, you can talk with them. And heaven knows, with all the wonderful wonders of technology, there are so many more ways in which we can avail ourselves of help and of support. So those are 2. We have 2 more that I will be talking about next week. As I was preparing this week, again, from my well-used Spiritual Truths by Rabbi Joseph Gelberman, this was the next, and I think a very appropriate reading for us to consider. And then I have one final thought before I leave you. This is entitled, Live Courageously. And certainly both the Passion story and the Passover story are filled with courageous love and leadership. Courage, like art, demands practice. No challenge needs dismay us. If we practice trusting life, we become equipped with the resources we need to overcome the tyranny of fear that claims our joy. All we need, basically, is to start with one gesture of faith as a token of this acceptance. Each little act strengthens the next. Courage is confidence and security which we build into ourselves by accepting challenges, gradually giving up our dependencies, and welcoming new avenues to test out our growth. Courage requires the wisdom not to thrash around alone with frantic stoicism and listen, but rather to build with the master builder, the divine, within each and every one of us. Now, I'm going to conclude this broadcast with a personal note. Yesterday was my 18th anniversary of my ordination. And it was a very special time, and I see that Dr. Williams is with us, and he was part of that service. I send you much love.